It also marks 10 years since Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 just vanished from the sky after departing Kuala Lumpur with 227 passengers and 12 crew members on board.
Flying's pretty much the safest and most reliable way to get around, but that doesn't mean things can't get wild up there. Think about it. Planes landing on their bellies without any wheels, engines suddenly bursting into flames, lightning deciding to say hello mid-flight, and even kids popping up in engine compartments like they're playing hide and seek. These are just a few of the craziest things that have gone down in the skies. Engine ablaze. This terrifying scene was so intense that nearly everyone on board stuffed their IDs into their pockets, bracing for the worst and thinking about the need for identification after a crash. Miraculously, all 231 people landed safely, all thanks to the pilot's exceptional skills. The aircraft's right engine was ablaze, and its casing had even come off. Experts called it an uncontained and catastrophic engine failure, with the engine erupting in flames. While everyone on the plane emerged unscathed, the engine casing caused damage to 2 homes in Broomfield, Colorado. Falcons on a plane. Flying with humans can really test your patience, but imagine sharing a flight with falcons. Ever experienced that? Arab princes, known for their lavish ways, take it to another level. One prince even reserved 80 seats for his falcons for a trip to Dubai. They truly spoil their birds like kings and queens. As for how they treat their people, well, that's up for discussion. Snakes on a plane. You might think of Samuel L. Jackson's action-packed Thriller, but this isn't about that movie, though what happened on a Mexican flight could have been a scene straight out of it. Picture this, a 3-foot greenish viper slithering out from behind an overhead bin, causing quite the panic. The pilot quickly got in touch with airport authorities, and they were on the ground within 10 minutes. The airline's been tight-lipped about how the snake got on board in the first place. Then, on a different day, another flight had its own snake passenger, this time in the plane's wing. This poor creature, a 3-meter-long snake, endured so much. It's probably in snake heaven now, finding peace after its ordeal. Smoke on a plane. I get it, the titles kind of rhyme, but let's dive into what happened. Back in March 2018, a WestJet flight was just 5 minutes away from Nanaimo Airport in Canada, when suddenly, the cabin started to fill with smoke, or at least something that looked a lot like it. The passengers got worried and urged the flight attendant to talk to the pilot, who after a tense few minutes declared an emergency landing. The video from the flight shows just how anxious and stressed everyone was. Thankfully, the plane landed safely, and everyone was quickly ushered out through the emergency exits. They even called a medical emergency, but luckily, everyone was okay in the end. As for the cause of the smoky situation, well, that remained a mystery to the public. An investigation was started, sure, but the findings were kept under wraps. Throwing coins. Ever wondered about the worst thing a fellow traveler could do on a flight? Well, it probably doesn't top what happened with this elderly Chinese woman. In China, coins are often seen as tokens of good luck. So, in hopes of warding off bad luck mid-flight, she tossed 9 coins into the plane's engine. At 80 years old ground or mental health concerns, it seems this was just a naive error on her part. However, her innocent mistake led to a 6-hour delay as the engine needed to be thoroughly checked. So, as harmless as her intentions might have been, the consequences were anything but minor. Kid inside the engine. This determined kid from Nigeria was so set on getting to Europe that he found a way to conceal himself inside a plane's engine that was bound for Europe. The Nigerian authorities caught wind of this and promptly removed the kid from the plane. Passengers push plane. The saying goes, passengers who board together, push together. Well, not really, but that's what happened when this plane's tire burst on the runway and it needed to be moved. This clip that went viral captures a group of passengers banding together to push the plane, a scene that unfolded in December 2021 at an airport in Nepal. In Siberia, there was a similar situation where a plane got trapped in ice, and passengers were called upon to assist. Despite the freezing -50-degree conditions, dozens of passengers came together to taxi the plane out. Truly remarkable. Lightning-struck plane. That lightning strike was incredible, truly a 1 in a million capture. While planes getting struck by lightning isn't uncommon, catching it on film is quite rare. But no need to stress, modern airplanes are built to handle lightning strikes. They undergo rigorous lightning tests to ensure they can endure such hits, which are all part of their certification process. The lightning flash is over in just milliseconds, so it's nothing to fret over. Woman left alone on plane. What might seem like a funny story to some was actually a terrifying ordeal for a woman named Tiffany O'Brien. She found herself stranded overnight on a plane. During her flight from Quebec to Toronto, she fell asleep, only to wake up to an empty, pitch-dark aircraft at midnight. With the plane's power shut off, she couldn't even charge her phone, leading her to panic alone in the dark. It's baffling why nobody thought to wake her up. Passenger handcuffed to wheelchair. While it's not unusual to encounter disruptive passengers on flights, it's certainly out of the ordinary to see someone being removed from the plane, handcuffed to a wheelchair. This particular individual stubbornly refused to vacate his seat, blocking others from accessing their luggage. Despite the flight attendant's warning that he needed to remain seated or face removal, he didn't comply. Ultimately, the police had to step in, securing him to a wheelchair with handcuffs. This incident caused a 45-minute delay for the flight. Let's talk about the thumbnail on this video. The story of the puzzling incident that allegedly happened to Santiago Flight 513 between 1954 and 1989 has been making rounds among the believers of the supernatural for decades now, and still, people aren't sure of what to make of it. According to an article published by tabloid Weekly World News in 1989, Santiago Airlines Flight 513 took off on September 4, 1954 from Aachen, West Germany, and was scheduled to arrive in Porto Alegre, Brazil 18 hours later. However, the airplane simply disappeared mid-flight over the Atlantic Ocean. At the time of the disappearance, authorities believed that the plane had crashed, and for the years to follow, multiple search parties were formed in order to look out for the remains of the passengers or the plane, but nothing was found. Time went by and decades passed. Santiago Airlines had already run out of business in 1956, just 2 years after the alleged disappearance, and after failing to find even a single trace of evidence of a plane crash, the search was called off. 3.5 decades later, on October 12, 1989, the Porto Alegre airport in Brazil spotted an unauthorized aircraft circling around the airbase. The air traffic controllers tried contacting the pilot but got no response. Eventually, the plane came close to the runway and stuck a perfect landing. It looked in a well-maintained shape and the engines were still up and running even after the plane touched base. Once the airport authorities approached the plane cautiously, they opened the doors from the outside, and what they say chilled their bones to the core. They found 92 perfectly preserved skeletons of the people on board, 88 passengers and 4 crew members, safely buckled into their seats. When they opened the cockpit doors, they saw that the plane's pilot, Captain Miguel Victor Curie, also in a skeletal form, still had his hands on the controls. What's your take on this tale? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Stick around as we dive into more unbelievable aviation happenings. Landing without wheels. Turbulence. Sure. Lightning strikes? Yup, but a wheels-free landing. That's straight up wild, even by aviation history standards. Picture this, a Boeing 767 packed with 231 folks lifts off from Newark, cruising smoothly until it's go time to hit the ground. But then, the Polish pilot hits a snag, the landing gear's on strike. After circling for an hour with no luck, he's like, guess we're going old school. Yeah, no kidding. They actually announced to everyone to buckle up for a no-wheels touchdown. Imagine making those just-in-case calls back home. But this pilot? Dude was about to carve his name in the history books. And the video? It's a masterclass in flying cool under pressure. The plane skidded down the runway, throwing sparks and flames from the engines, before finally coming to a stop. And get this, not a single scratch on anyone. We've got the whole play-by-play thanks to some quick-thumbed folks on the ground live tweeting the drama. Mid-air collision. The silver lining in this whole saga was the unbelievable and safe landing of all 12 folks on board. Picture this, a skydiving plane crash in November 2013. You'd think two planes smashing into each other mid-air couldn't happen because, well, they've got the entire sky to themselves, right? But against all odds, this intense mid-air crash had both planes hurtling towards the Earth. Luckily, everyone was geared up and seasoned in the art of jumping out of planes. They all made it out alive, giving us footage that could easily pass for a scene from an action-packed Hollywood flick. This is one experience they'll never shake off. Passenger restrained mid-air. During a flight to Atlanta, an off-duty flight attendant experienced a severe mental health crisis mid-flight, prompting other passengers to intervene. He reportedly attempted to open a door while the plane was airborne. The captain called for the assistance of any strong males on board to help manage the situation. Several passengers stepped up to restrain him. Additionally, he allegedly passed a note to a flight attendant containing explicit threats of terrorism. Thank you very much for watching the video. Do like and share it with your friends. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to not miss any of the upcoming amazing videos. Thank you once again.